Hello and welcome to episode 269 of Retro Encounter, RPG fans' weekly podcast of many topics. I'm Mike Sollosi, and maybe you noticed this, but this is going to be the final Retro Encounter episode of 2020, which means we're going to uphold the tradition that's lasted at least since 2016 and talk about the year of RPGs. This is our 2020 year in review episode, and joining me today are Zach Wilkerson.
Hi there.
Alana Hagues.
We made it, kids.
Nathan Lee.
Hey, everyone.
And Eva Padilla.
Did we, though?
Well, okay. We're recording this a little bit before the end of the year, so there's still time for the world to end, and maybe this podcast recording will never see the light of day. But anyway, 2020 has been a challenging year for many reasons. We don't need to get into all of them, but maybe some of them. In video games or otherwise, how have our 2020s been? Any volunteers?
Bad. Very bad. Even outside of the coronavirus, it's been bad. But you know what? Retro Encounter and RPG Fan have both been amazing, so that's all that matters.
I'm basically in agreement. I think this was maybe one of our best years for Retro Encounter, in some small part to people being available to podcast, surprisingly. Maybe even in a government-mandated way. I thought that the year for video games was pretty strong. Like, there was a bunch of games that I really loved that came out. Some more than others. We'll get into those. But besides Zach and I, how did people think of 2020 in video games?
Pretty good. Like, generally, last year, I think I only played like one or two games that were released in 2020. And this year I played 5 or 6, which, is not a lot, but it's still 3 times as many as last year. So top marks to 2020 for that being at least positive.
Yeah, I think my number was also right around the 5, 6, 7 range. But I at least had enough to come up with a top 5 for the RPG Fan Game of the Year feature, which should be coming up, I think, soon. That's scheduled for early January, and this episode should post on December 31st.
2020 for me, I enjoyed playing, going back in time and playing a bunch of remake games. I feel like that was basically dominated early 2020 for me, just going back and playing a whole bunch of stuff that was older. And then the rest of the year, I feel like I got dominated by 13 Sentinels early, like in the latter half of the year, but that was about it.
This really was the year of the remake. Like, I think I even, in the FF7 remake episode and the Trials of Mana episode, I maybe even poked fun at the huge number of remakes coming out in 2020, a few of which I took advantage of. As did Nathan. Just glancing at this gigantic list of over 100 games that we compiled. There's Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Rune Factory 4, Persona 5 Royal, FF7 Remake, Trials of Mana Remake, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Just bunches and bunches of remakes. Some really, really good ones, including the many of the ones I mentioned. But I said that we have this giant list ahead of us, and we're going to do basically what we've done in past years in the year in review episode, and each of us take turns just going through the list of games, highlighting a few that were our favorites or particularly noteworthy, and just sort of going down the line until we get too tired to podcast anymore. And because 2020 makes me feel just tired all the time, every day, maybe this will be a short episode, but I somehow doubt that. So does anyone want to volunteer a first game for our list? All right, I guess I'll pick the first one. We did an episode all about it, and I think let's just get it out of the way right now. I think the first half of the year in our little circle of RPG fans was dominated by the oncoming Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like, there is buzz, will it actually come out? We've known about this for years. Does it even exist? To it making a huge splash in April after receiving multiple delays. And I think that, geez, were 4 of us on the remake Spoilercast episode that we recorded in April?
We were.
Yeah. So at least 80% of us played it. Nathan, did you knock out the FF7 remake?
No, I think I was busy with Persona 5 Royal at the time. So
fair, because that game only came out a few weeks ahead of FF7 Remake, so it was a crowded March and April in 2020. But let's focus talking about FF7. That game was such a huge impact on us in around when it came out. And Alana, you wrote the review for RPG Fan on it.
Yeah, I've called on it a little bit since I covered it, and I think it's a remarkable remake. Like, I think Remake does it a disservice. I think it's more of a reimagining of the entire original first 5 hours of the game, and I think credit to them for delivering something so polished and so, like, different. You know, everybody had all these expectations about it, and it kind of defied most people's expectations. I really loved it, and like I said, I have called on it a bit. I think it's a really interesting new direction for Square Enix to go. Like, you know, 1 year they could have a Final Fantasy XIV patch, or not patch, expansion. You've got Final Fantasy 16 on the horizon, and then the next year you could have Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 2, or whatever they're going to call it. But I think, like, the best thing about Remake is, like, characterization of the main cast, and I think really, like, to take those blocky little pixels and pull them out and just build them up as well as they did. Like, you know, all 5 of those, I say 5, Red 13 only gets, like, 4 hours of time? I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable, I think. It's a feat. Like, Square have been rebuilding their reputation for quite a while, I think. I think they lost a few people with 15, which I liked, but I totally get where people don't like it.
You mean RPG Fans Game of the Year 2016, Final Fantasy 15?
It comes up every time, right? You know, hindsight's a thing. I've played Cold Steel 1 and 2 since then as well, so, you know. I wouldn't put Cold Steel 2 there, though. Yeah, I think they've spent so much time rebuilding a lot of faith, and I think 7 Remake was a really good way to do it. I know it doesn't sit pretty with everybody, and there are narrative decisions I'm still not sure about, like 8 months down the line. But I certainly think it was, you know, it absolutely defied my expectations, I would say, which I think is really, I was happy with it. Let's put it that way.
I mean, like, I have major issues with the way the narrative resolves in this game, but overall, I still think Remake is an incredible accomplishment. I mean, the way that they managed to take something that is particular and unique for its time and even now, and make it its own thing is remarkable. I think it's an incredible game. It has its issues, but, like, I haven't cooled on it. I may have heated on it slightly since we podcasted about it. I don't know, 10 months ago. But I think that it might have its issues, but it is a game, and it is a remarkable achievement in accomplishing something that none of us ever thought was possible, which is, like, take the most popular RPG of all time and turn it into its own thing, and it did do that thing.
Yeah. I think Alana hit the nail on the head where she said the best thing about it might be its characterization. Everything was just done very beautifully and executed very dramatically, and it was really fun moment to moment, even in the new open world elements that they added in things like the like the wall market chapters. So, and I don't want to go into the story too deeply, but they make some extremely weird and bold story choices in the last chapters that make you sort of rethink everything you know about FF7 and sort of weird and apprehensive about the future of the remake. The next chapter of this, or part 2 of this, will probably not be what people are expecting, is what I think. But we don't know when that's going to be. Like, I think, 2023 doesn't sound like the worst estimate. And if they enter a cycle like Alana suggested of, you know, alternate years of remake chapter, FF14 expansion, new game like FF16, then this series has been maybe in the best spot I remember it being in since their PS1, PS2 heyday.
Easily.
Yeah, and so, like, FF7 Remake was not my favorite game of the year, but it was, I thought it was great, even though I did play it sort of a little too quickly, trying to fit it in time to record a podcast about it in April. I beat it in something like like 10 or 11 days, and I sort of wish I gave myself more time. But I did definitely enjoy it in the moment and think of it fondly. Although I'm not sure if I've warmed or cooled on it. More like I've just found other games I liked more later in the year.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, try 4 days.
Oh my yikes!
God. Yeah. I love embargoes so much.
I would actually say that I've warmed on it to the level that Don't Throw Stones at Me might be my favorite game of the year. In terms of, I mean, I had a wonderful time with it. There was just such, I received so much joy from the characterizations. Like, no game made me smile more that was released in 2020 than Final Fantasy VII Remake. And I completely agree with the execution of we won't talk, no spoilers here, but the execution of the ending is suspect. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that, but I very much respect the fact that out of all the games this year, really, and most other remakes in media, it interrogated what it meant to be a remake, to be this massive cultural force, and to have that kind of thrown to the wind. And by the end of the game, you don't feel nostalgic, really. You might feel nostalgic, but mostly you're going to feel off balance. You're going to feel unsure. And there's going to be a bit of a pit in your stomach, and I love that feeling.
Oh, yeah, I was shook when somebody turned up at the end. I was like, are you joking? And I can't talk about this for, another week?
Yeah, like musical cues made me feel nostalgic, and the soundtrack is awesome in the FF7 remake. But the plot, it's not a moment to moment, scene for scene recreation of FF7. It's a remake. They are redoing or reimagining parts of it in ways that aren't the same, and the future of the remake won't be the same in maybe even more dramatic ways, and that's fascinating. And let's just say that forums and the the niche JRPG spheres that we are part of were abuzz with everything happening about FF7 remake, especially around when it came out. It's even if it's not your favorite RPG of the year, it's one of the biggest ones, beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, I think it's remarkable regardless of what you think of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Definitely. It makes you, by the end of it, you get this feeling that you've kind of gone through this guided tour of Final Fantasy VII in a way, but then at the end of it, it's like going back to an old hometown or something and seeing all your familiar haunts and everything. But then there's something at the end of the road that you just don't really know. It's somewhat unknowable. And it makes you feel excited, but also quite nervous. And that was one of my favorite feelings that I've had with media this year. So, yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of media that we've experienced this year, what's something else on the list we got to hit?
I feel like Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is something we should talk about.
All right. Let's do it.
I mean, I adore Xenoblade Chronicles, like the original one, but the Definitive Edition takes so many of the edges off of the original one. So, one of the common criticisms of the original Xenoblade was the way the graphics looked. Well, it looks way better on Switch. It's hard to find quests. Well, it gives you a line to walk to your quests. But I think that, in contrast to Remake, which is a remake of Final Fantasy VII, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is Xenoblade, pure and true. But it takes all the things that I think were difficult and sometimes maybe even problematic for some people in terms of how to get through the game, and it tries to rub those edges off. And I think it does a phenomenal job of doing that. I mean, I gave it a very high review score when I reviewed it, and it's because I think it is a remarkable achievement in being incredibly faithful to what the game was originally. It's not nearly as old as Final Fantasy VII. It needed more of a refresh than a remake in order to make it accessible to people today. And I think that they did a remarkable job with that in Definitive Edition.
Yeah, I mean, original Xenoblade is one of the best RPGs of the 2010s, and depending on your region, it's been 8 to 10 years since the original came out. So a more accessible remake that is just more playable, but preserves everything good about the original is extremely warranted. The only reason I didn't play it was because that game is like 110 freaking hours, and my time was otherwise occupied.
Yeah. I agree with everything Zach said. I'm like in the middle of dipping in and out of it. Xenoblade Chronicles is one of my favorite games of all time. So yeah, just the fact that it's kind of like softened everything a little bit, and I'm a bit obsessive about the quests, even accidentally. Like I'm still doing all of them, even though I said I wouldn't. But I don't think there's an RPG world that has ever been so realized and so well presented as Xenoblade. Like, it's so important to me. I love everything about the Bionis and the Mechonis, and seeing it in like pretty HD colors, things I don't know how to describe it, is just amazing. And like, I don't think the story holds up as well as I remember it, but like everything else about it, I mean, it does.
Still amazing.
It's great. I just wish it wasn't. I don't know. I've got to get further in it. I'm not beyond the halfway point. Like, I know when I get to that bit at Aerith Sea and Valak Mountain and the Fallen Arm, I'm going to be crying my eyes out again. Like, I can see it. But yeah, like it's one of my all-time favorite games. Like, you can't really, the only thing, and I haven't played Future Connected yet, I've heard it's not very good, and I'm not sure if I even want to play it now, because
that's the sort of extra chapter, separate thing that was added to DE.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as the person who has played Future Connected, Future Connected is not very good. In fact, it's actually kind of bad. I mean, like, I was comparing one of the things that was happening, because as I said earlier, I was playing it for review. I was thinking about Torna, the Golden Country, which is one of the best DLCs maybe of all time. Like, we're talking like The Witcher 3 good.
And that's for Xenoblade 2.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's bad. I mean, the story, like, it takes a lot of the wind out of a lot of it. I guess I'll back up here for a second. The goal of that particular DLC for Xenoblade is to give Melia's story some more room to breathe, but instead it like takes all the wind out of Melia's story.
Oh, that's disappointing. Because if there was one character I would sort of want additional fleshing out, it probably would be Melia.
Yeah. It's not great. I mean, like, it does some things with the battle system that are a little bit unique in terms of like changing chain attacks to all out attacks, and some things that I think are okay. But my biggest problem with it is that it just seems like totally non-essential. Like,
right.
It's just whatever. And comparing that to the storytelling in Xenoblade or Xenoblade 2 or the Golden Country, it just feels like, why am I doing this? It just feels like more time on the shoulder. And the shoulder is a cool area. Don't get me wrong. Like, it feels like a blend of Xenoblade 1 and Xenoblade 2, and I love Xenoblade 2 a lot, but it's not fully fleshed out. It feels half-baked, and it's not nearly as good. But to get back, I mean, like, but I still think the strength of the changes they make to the original Xenoblade make it worthy of a purchase, worthy of a play for anybody.
Oh yeah, definitely. I would always recommend the Switch version over the Wii, and especially the new 3DS version. Like, there's no way I would recommend the other two now over this. Like, yeah, I was a bit mean. Xenoblade's story is great. It's just more of a, like, I don't know, that game's never been about the story for me necessarily, apart from the second half of the game. The second half of the game is where it gets really good, and I will, once I get there, then I will remember all the best bits and then fall in love with it again. I do love it anyway, but
For me, that game is about when you reach Gower Plains for the first time, which is maybe the second major part of the game, and you just experience its vastness and sort of like how the rest of the game's open world elements will blend with the JRPG elements, and like the moment of first walking through that is almost recreated with every new major area you visit, because this game is just so beautiful and delivers on its its open world side quests, JRPG elements. Just it executes on all of them so beautifully and doesn't really feel like any other RPG. This like people will say, oh, this is what FF12 wanted to be, or this is this is the best MMO ever made, except it's self-contained and not online. Like weird comments like that are how people describe this game in terms of other games. And again, I confidently say it's one of the best RPGs of the 2010s, and I have not played the definitive edition, but it's something I'm very interested in, and when I feel like revisiting that world, that will be the way to do it. And because, I mean, it was, people get, precious about the facial animations changing and like small visual changes made to the game, both positively and negatively received. But I think this is the way to play it now that it's on much more powerful hardware and has more UI and modern amenities surrounding it. But we should move on to something else. What else do we want to discuss for the episode?
If we're just going through remakes, let's talk Persona 5 Royal.
All right.
So this is a game that I just finished like a week and a half ago, and Nathan played for review. And the other three of you have all played P5, right?
I have, yes.
And Zach and Alana, you did too, right?
Yeah, I've played P5.
Yeah. So I guess there's some different experiences we've had, because I didn't play any of Persona 5, and like Nathan is the only one who's played both of them. So Nathan, you want to take this first as the one who has the foot in both worlds?
Yeah, sure. So for me, Persona 5 Royal introduces so many big quality of life changes to the original Persona 5, because basically almost every problem anyway, that people had with Persona 5. So a lot of the main issues were not being able to do what you want sometimes, because Morgana will constantly tell you to go to sleep. That was just the meme that came out of that game, just because it just happened all the time. Like, you would just go out and just hang out for a day, and Morgana was like, "You're too tired to do anything at home. You're gonna go to sleep." And that was the main thing that Royal addressed. And because we've only played Royal, you wouldn't know, but that game that opens up so many more options for you when you play Royal. It just makes the game a lot more enjoyable. Just that one change. And it's also like, we can go deeper into like the third semester and stuff like that, but basically the main thing with Royal is it's definitely the way to experience Persona 5 for sure.
Yeah, I definitely felt, when I looked at things from the original Persona 5 and looked at things from Royal, like the as you mentioned, stuff with Morgana, even just there's a slight font change that I really appreciate for Persona 5 Royal. Mm-hmm. I just think the font looks better, which is like a small thing, but it speaks to a lot of the care that's been put into this. There are more personas to summon. There are more ways to summon and get personas. It seems to be distinctly easier than the base game,
yes,
except for one particular boss fight.
Is there more fishing? Because that's what Persona 5 really needed, like twice as much fishing.
No, it doesn't. No way.
I did.
That's a hard no for me, Doug.
I did the one fishing segment that was like story specific, and then never did it again. So sorry, Sollosi.
All right, I guess fishing of the year definitely goes to a game we're going to talk about later. Blood and Darkness.
So this game, I put 145 hours into this game.
Jesus.
Sounds
I know, but that's the thing about it. It was both enthralling in a way of I just kept playing it, but it was also like I was enthralled to it, because there is a particular way that Persona games function that really sucks me in and makes it so that it engages your brain on I think too many levels in a way. And not to say that it's the most erudite complex narrative ever, though it is a good story. Just there's so many mechanics and systems to consider that it feels like a job sometimes to be playing that game and be on the up and up, in a way that other games don't really. And when I was playing Persona 2 or Persona 4, those games are short enough and less fully featured where when I start to get to that point of feeling like I'm enthralled to it, the game is already over and it's fine. Persona 5 Royal just kept going though, and so while it is a great experience and it's pretty much aesthetically the most perfect game I've ever seen, it still has some things that make me kind of uncomfortable with the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I binged Persona 5 so hard in 2017 when it came out in North America, because it was so mechanically and visually and musically awesome that I was compelled to do the next thing always. But it really dragged towards the end, because I feel like that game is like I was flagging around the 80, 90, 100 hour mark because and it's not always expertly paced, but I was still compelled to beat it once, and then in a New Game Plus pursue a platinum trophy on it. So it's a game I like a whole lot. And the only reason I didn't play Royal this year was because I had too many other things to play, and I'd beaten the game 3 years earlier. Like it didn't have enough distance for a remake. I'm much closer to replaying Xenoblade than Persona 5, but I mean, I like, as a standalone game, it was already excellent, and now people have responded pretty well to the new content. Like a lot of the fan base, which I do keep track of at least a little bit, were very, very positive about Kasumi. Well, there's a lot of Kasumi fans among Persona people.
Yeah, because both Kasumi and Maruki, the new confidant, are also he's also really good. Like the third semester is just a trip for sure.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah, I've heard so many good things about the third semester, and like, I kind of wish that it was a bit earlier. Like Sollosi said, I flagged around the same time you did. Like, Persona 5 has my longest playtime out of all 4 of the Persona games I've played by... And, well, no, it doesn't. Persona 3 does, but Persona 3 I 100%ed. So, I really want to play Royal, because, like, there's things in it that I don't think... I'm not sure I want. Like, there's some extra stuff with Adachi that everybody says is great, and, like, I'm really interested in the new character, but... Yeah, like, it's not like the new character stuff I definitely would like, but I don't know about Adachi's stuff, and everyone's like, oh, it's great, and I'm like, but yeah, I really want to see what people think of it. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
You mean Akechi, right?
Oh, Akechi,
yeah.
sorry.
Adachi is a Persona 4 and Yakuza 7 character.
Oh god.
oh, for a second I thought you meant like Adachi Toru himself was in Yakuza 7.
No. Like, there is a different Detective Adachi in Yakuza 7.
Gotcha.
But
they both work for the detectives and the police, don't they? It's like,
well, no, not exactly.
Well, Akechi and Adachi do, essentially.
Yes. Remaining in Persona world, yes. But
I'm so sorry.
I also did hear that people are higher on Akechi. Thanks to Royal, even though he had a lot of fans even before Royal. I would be playing this just experience a slightly better version of Persona 5 and meet this Kasumi lady, but again, there's just too many remakes and too many games. The excuse I use for everything all the time.
I will say though, Persona 5 Royal is a lot better paced, just because they made grinding a lot easier, so it's a lot easier to plow through stuff that you've already seen. So that's probably what made the experience better for me.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. And the battle mechanics and such, the showtime attacks are so fun. They're so fun.
Oh, are those
dual
the
ones now, don't
they?
Yeah,
the tandem ones.
Yes, there's one in particular that's a Fist of the North Star reference that is just so good.
You have my attention.
I've seen it so many times throughout the game, and it made me smile every single time.
I feel like Sollosi would appreciate one of the ones that's in the wrestling ring.
Oh, I am a fan of
yes.
professional wrestling and Fist of the North Star. I even played the not very good RGG Studio Fist of the North Star game.
Yeah, that didn't look great.
No, remarkably, that was my first RGG Studio game. It almost made me less likely to try Yakuza later. But that I fixed that in 2020. That's for damn sure. But again, yeah, I'm interested in Persona 5 Royal. I'll get to it eventually, but it just didn't happen in 2020 for me. But I'm glad that it was pretty well received in general, but both by people that wanted more out of Persona 5 and people playing it for the first time. We've done 3 remakes in a row. Do we want to make it a 4th?
Yeah, get your remake out the way, Sollosi.
Let's talk about Trials.
Oh, okay. Okay, I wasn't necessarily going in that direction, but I accept it. Trials of Mana 2020 came out in April or May for the 25th anniversary of Trials of Mana / the Seiken Densetsu 3, one of my favorite Super Famicom RPGs, one of my favorite 16-bit RPGs. I've talked about my love for that game many times on podcasts, and we don't have to go into it for very long, but I played that game 3 times in 2020, 2 new game pluses that went by very quickly because you can break the hell out of this game, and it's not very challenging. But it preserves the story of Trials of Mana so accurately that I sort of wish there was a little more. I was like, oh, this is exactly how it was in the 16-bit version, and I remember it because I played the 16-bit version less than a year ago. Because the Mana collection came out in summer 2019. But like the game has been compared to a PS2 or PS3 RPG in how it's, an action game that works but is slightly sluggish, and in a way that I don't necessarily disagree with. It's completely different from original Trials of Mana in that it is a fully 3D realized Unreal Engine game. With a detailed skill and customization system and a combo system that's way different from the old 16-bit sprites. But story-wise and environment-wise, it preserves everything remarkably faithfully. And it was really fun for me to experience a story that I already loved in a new way. And it's very playable, but I don't want to necessarily say it's better than all of these like huge HD remakes of games that were already much more modern and elaborate to begin with. But if you're at least interested in the Trials of Mana story, the 2020 remake is really, really good, and I still love those 6 main characters like they are my children, or like my favorite nieces and nephews, or something like, or around that vibe. And I played the game 3 times to beat the game with each of them and get the platinum trophy. I think Trials of Mana does enter my top 5 games of the year, but that's very specific to me because I already love Trials of Mana a lot. But yeah, now the evasion stat isn't broken anymore, and Duran is not a slow as molasses anymore, and that's enough for me.
And the shields work.
yeah. The evasion stat was busted in old Trials of Mana, and that includes the 80% of what the agility and luck stats did, and how all shield equipment worked. but that's fixed now.
Yeah, I do wish I'd picked this up. Like, I was really determined to play it, but it just came out at the wrong time. Like, it was sandwiched between Remake and Xenoblade and a couple of things. And I did play the demo, and I enjoyed it a lot of the time. And then within, like, a week, I was going back over it with a fine-tooth comb and was like, you compare it to a PS2 game. It's a PS2 game with some of the worst cliches, like the janky animations, the really mediocre voice acting,
the enemies that are more like targets than opponents a lot of the time.
Yeah, but I will say, like, it's a million times better than the Secret of Mana remake, like a million times better. Like, I'm really glad for that team, and you can tell that, Square Enix were very focused on other areas at the time. But I'm really glad that they've done this with Trials of Mana, because it kind of gives the Mana series a bit more of a chance now. Like, maybe we'll get another good one. Who knows? And yeah, it reviewed really well. I remember Greg gave it an editor's choice, and I think he gave it 87 or 88, which I was like, wow, really?
Yeah, I mean, how sad it is that I think this might be the first good new Mana game that wasn't a direct port like the Mana collection, Like,
Oh,
like
is.
maybe in 15 or 20 years.
At least since Legend of Mana, and I know people's opinions vary on that a lot.
Yeah, Legend of Mana is 2000. Sword of Mana, which was okay, was like 02 or 03, and I think
Right,
those
yeah.
would be what you look at, which is sad because Mana has several good games in its series, and it deserves better. I feel.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, we did get Booskaboo in 3D.
Yes, we did. Booskaboo and Flammy. Oh, how good are
Only
they?
they called Booskaboo by the right name.
Yes. Yeah,
He is so cute.
Yeah, he is our perfect
Booskaboo.
turtle boy. Even if they did translate him as Vuskov this time around.
It's a shame. It's a crying shame.
Yeah, Booskaboo forever.
Booskaboo and Tizo together forever.
Oh my god!
Oh.
What an all-star mascot team!
Right, should we talk about the other remake that I think I derailed you from, which I haven't played, but
Sure.
covered on Retro Encounter.
There were so many
even.
there were so many remakes. I'm not 100% sure which one you're referring to. Hit me.
Oh, I was talking about Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
Yeah, let's do it.
Ports, then.
That counts.
Yeah, I want to hear about it.
Nathan, you reviewed Tokyo Mirage Sessions for the website. I never had a Wii U, so I played Tokyo Mirage Sessions FE Encore, which is the Switch version that came out in January. When I played that, it was my first time playing the game, and it's a mostly it's pretty much a straight up recreation of the Wii U version, but with sort of some side dungeons and new content sprinkled around here and there. But mostly just tells the story of the original Wii U version. I liked it a lot. It was a weird Atlas Nintendo collaboration that is an SMT or Persona-like story mostly, but with Fire Emblem iconography and a lot of Japanese pop music and entertainment industry influence. Because the main characters are all talent and managers within a talent agency. And the shadow monsters that are plaguing the world are draining people of their creative energy, and there's betrayal and a conspiracy and eventually world-shaping stakes. But it culminates in one of the best grand finale scenes I have seen in the JRPG in forever. You know what I'm talking about, Nathan. Oh yeah, like a lot of so many JRPGs have a moment before the final boss where people like join hands and pray or talk about friendship or something, and then there's a big moment before the real fight happens. Like Tokyo Mirage Sessions has one of the best ones of those. And I implore you to play the game or listen to our podcasts that we recorded in I think March. But Nathan, how about it? Tokyo Mirage Sessions. We got a really good port, didn't we?
Yeah, this for me, Tokyo Mirage Sessions is it's one of my favorite games. It's not super amazing as a game, but hell if I don't love just how hammy it is with to the entertainment industry in Japan, and just everything about it is just it's just something that's I think is just a special experience for anyone who's really interested in the entertainment industry in any kind of way. I
mean, there's one of the main characters. His dream is to be a tokusatsu superhero, and that's my favorite side quest of 2020. With apologies to a lot of stuff in Yakuza 7.
I was going to say, well, yeah, I guess there is no tokusatsu quest in Yakuza.
There isn't, and I checked. Believe me, I checked.
I know you checked. We've had this discussion.
Yeah, I knew when you picked out that game, I knew that Toma's gonna be one of your favorite characters.
Oh yeah, it wasn't close. like in a game that has a pretty appealing cast, my favorite character was an easy decision. Because I love Fire Emblem Cavaliers already, and they made the Toku guy that believes in truth, love, and justice a Cavalier. So I was like, of course I loved Toma. Of course I did.
That's perfect.
But that game it's very pastel. It's almost overwhelmingly colorful. And there's sort of eye roll moments in both how J-pop it is and how RPG it is. But if you can sort of get around those hang-ups, or maybe those aren't hang-ups at all, and you welcome that kind of concept or that kind of aesthetic, it's really, really good. I was already interested in it when I just knew of it as a Wii U game, and sort of thought to myself, ooh, if this ever comes out on Switch, I'll be all over it. And I followed up on that idea and really, really liked it. I don't think it's one of my favorite games of the year necessarily, but I enjoyed it throughout, and I hope that enthusiasm was at least communicated in those podcasts we recorded, Nathan.
Yeah, you really did love the game, and I honestly can't ask too much more of that as a big fan of Tokyo Mirage Sessions. So I just love seeing more people just going out and experiencing this game and having fun.
And also, I maybe shed a manly tear or two in the end credits of that game. Satoru Iwata appears in the end credits. Because it was he was
one of his last games.
He was one of the exec producers on it when it came out in 2015. So rest in power, Satoru.
Definitely. It's cool to see it come, though, because it was a Wii U exclusive, and there were so many of those games that were trapped on that system, and now they're slowly all coming over. And I mean, the last one left is Xenoblade Cross now, isn't it? So
new Super Mario 3D World comes out in a few months. So that one and Xenoblade Cross are the last ones on my list, and Cross is the only one that does not have a certain future.
We'll see.
I mean, as someone who is occasionally a pastel nightmare and listens to a lot of pop music, the enthusiasm that you both brought definitely reached me, and I definitely want to give this game a shot. So
you are not a nightmare. That's
well, not in personality, but sometimes there's just a lot of pastel going on.
This game is very pastel, but I think you should be aware of what you're getting into and just how anime and how J-pop this game is. But be aware of that before you throw money on the Nintendo eShop. But give it a shot because I found it very, very enjoyable.
And it still has one of my favorite battle systems in a turn-based game.
It's a very good turn-based battle system that feels fast-moving, and I think Persona 5 does this very well as well. When you have a turn-based combat system where you're making choices and it feels brisk and not sluggish is that sweet spot you want to hit, and Tokyo Mirage Sessions does a very good job of that. But again, we went into great detail on all of that in those podcast episodes, which listeners, I encourage you to listen to if you either played the game or aren't wary of spoilers. But that's 5 big remakes in a row we talked about. There's a couple other, but let's talk about some games that are a little bit more new to 2020. Is there something on the list we want to bring up for sure? We don't have to necessarily stick to the first half of 2020 either.
I'll break away. Let's do 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim.
Let's.
Now. Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
God, how do you describe this game to people? I made a bit of a joke to myself. I was like, at the beginning of the year, I thought, if 13 Sentinels comes out, wouldn't it be funny if it was my game of the year? And here I am at the end of the year going, it might be. It's not. It's pretty high up, though. I just think this combination of, people have described it as a visual novel, and even I've used that term. It's more of an adventure game, I would say. It's closer to a point-and-click game, but people associate VN with Japan, I suppose, so it's the easier term. I just think the most remarkable thing about that game is, you have 13 characters with 13 stories that all intertwine into one big story that is really overwhelming, but 95% of it makes sense, and it all works so well. I got overwhelmed at times, but the game does a really good job of logging everything and putting things into order, and it's just it's a total love letter to sci-fi as well, which I think is really cool. Sci-fi is not my favorite genre in the world, but I think it does it in such a normal and open way, in such a fun and cutesy way. It's really celebratory of the genre, and just has a lot of fun with the characters and the whole situation.
The characters and the whole situation. 13 Sentinels, 13 giant robots, 13 teenagers as their pilots with 13 intertwining stories. That is all true, but really there's, I would say 16 or 17 main characters that are all intertwined and crossed over in these stories, and I don't think this is a spoiler, but this game has, again, off the top of my head, time travel, giant robots, alternate dimensions, robot clones, maybe also biological clones, space travel, chaos theory. There is so much that is thrown into this game that it does not break your brain and does form parts of a cohesive whole is a remarkable achievement in its own right. And again, whether this is a visual novel or an adventure game, I sort of put those two things in the same box. I would call it I sort of call all of those puzzle adventures, but and also the way that they incorporate smart adventure game stuff, like introducing characters to concepts, and you're able to throw concepts at other characters to change dialogue, and your situations like you can't go to the cafeteria to look this guy until you overhear a conversation about someone seeing him in the cafeteria, just like little things like that. That's all in a sensibly organized, story flow chart for you to explore, or I should say 13 story flow charts for you to explore. And it's also, it's a Vanillaware game, and so you have these, what's his name? Is it George?
George Kamitani.
George Kamitani.
Yeah. He's not the main artist for this game, but he did do some of the art. Yeah,
and he
does the art for most of the games. Yeah,
and he's still the Vanillaware creative lead. I think.
President. Yeah.
This game is absolutely stunningly pretty, both visually and musically, and has excellent voice work as well. That it's a hell of an achievement. I think it is one of my favorite games of the year, and I enjoyed the hell of it when I played it about a month or two ago. Again, this game came out in the fall, in September. Yeah. So I played it in November and had a blast. And Nathan, this is one of your top picks of the year. Am I not mistaken?
Yeah, I'm currently trying to decide if this or Persona 5 Royal is my favorite game of the year, but this for sure, I might put it up here just because it's more unique. But my god, this game just blew my mind so many times with all of its story revelations, and the fact that it all makes sense really is an achievement. Like, the story really shouldn't work, but it does. So
sometimes you have to check the glossary or go between a few of those flow charts I mentioned to help it make sense. But it all sort of works. And I wasn't blown away by the grand finale, but there's so many twists and turns in the mid game to throw you off balance that I was pretty riveted from through the whole journey. And we didn't even mention this game is also a real time strategy giant robot action RPG.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like 2080. Like 80% is the VN stuff, and 20% is like the combat. And I'm not the biggest fan of it. It's a bit simplistic and a little busy sometimes.
And once you realize how powerful sentry guns and interceptors are, sometimes the battles will play themselves. I think the 80-20 ratio that you mentioned is about right. But the fact that this is a 13 teenagers that in 13 giant robots fighting a battle, and then the story part is, but how did this battle take place? How did these kids find these giant robots? Is the conceit of most of the story is pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I do like the way that they weave in enough story into those combat sections that they do. You have to do them, but it makes them more interesting for me. And I do it's such a hard game to talk about as you're playing, because you can play most of the characters in any order until you hit blockers. So it's one of these games that's so hard to spread because of, the limitations of what you can say, because somebody may have finished Natsuno's story, or somebody might have finished Megami's story, and it's you can't tell somebody else because they haven't done that yet. It's Vanillaware have always been on the cusp. Odin Sphere is probably their best game prior to this. It's the only one I haven't played now. But I think 13 Sentinels is their best game. It's just so ambitious, and it works.
I've tried almost every Vanillaware game, and this was the only one I've finished. It's the one I've enjoyed the most by far. Again, if any of what we're saying sounds appealing, then you absolutely should try it. Also, these 13 stories, even though they are intertwined and interconnected smartly, they aren't similar. One kid is trapped in a Groundhog Day scenario where the same event on a train station platform happens over and over.
One of my favorites. I love that.
One girl is pressured by a shadowy government organization to investigate her classmates, and she has to play detective a little bit. One girl finds a little robot alien and hides it in her backpack, and tries to help it accomplish its mission on Earth. And another one is a kid from 1940s Japan who accidentally travels in time to 1980s Japan Japan to learn that Japan lost the war, but there's giant robots, so he's trying to figure out how he can get a giant robot back to the 1940s to help Japan win World War II, which I did not know until this year, that most Japanese refer to as the Pacific War, which is interesting. Not even bad necessarily, just something I didn't know. And those are just 4 or 5 of these. This game is wild, and when I said all of the sci-fi notes it touches, earlier in this discussion, I think I didn't spoil this outside the first 2 hours of the game.
No, you can't. It's really hard to, unless you once you spoil one thing, you kind of spoil everything. So it's easy to be cautious around.
There is so much in this visual novel that is so much fun. That it comes highly recommended, and again, and I don't want to understate just how pretty this game is. The visuals are just stunning.
It looks so good.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, the production values are through the roof, which is amazing considering this has been in development since 2012, 2013. A long time. It's been in development for a while. It was a joke that it wasn't going to come out. And here it is. And it's
Atlas even paid to have it be advertised on the E3 badges in 2017 and 2018, and but they didn't have they didn't have anything to show in those years other than the 2015-2016 trailer that everyone had already seen. So I think this game was supposed to come out considerably earlier than 2020, but they didn't release it until it was good and ready, which ended up being, I think, late 2019 in Japan and September 2020 in most other territories. But it was. I hope they made money on this thing, because this thing was worth the wait. It is so good.
Yeah, me too. Again, it is like Tokyo Mirage Sessions. It's anime as hell at times.
Oh, yeah.
And there are some issues I have with certain characters that,
also very fair.
Yeah, so...
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, yeah, just be careful. But, I think... the positives outweigh, massively. It is an incredibly ambitious game, and 95% of it works. So, yeah, hats off to a tiny studio like Vanillaware.
Yeah, it's so good. I think it got localized by Atlas, so it was published in North America and Europe by them, maybe also in Japan, but I think they just lent some of its publishing and translation muscle to it, because Vanillaware definitely doesn't have a foreign studio to help with that. But let's continue with our 2020 run. That was a lot of time on 13 Sentinels. That game maybe deserves its own spoiler cast, but we're not here for that today. I mean, where do we want to go next? We again, this document we have here is 107 games. I counted. If we're waiting for other stuff, I can talk a little bit about Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Sure, let's leave Japan for once. Sometimes our website could fairly be called jrpgfan.com. But Eva, you recently reviewed Assassin's Creed Valhalla for the website, and before you get into our Facebook mentions, that's not a JRPG, try playing Origins, Odyssey, or Valhalla first and tell me that isn't an RPG. But Eva, go off.
So in the review, I wrote a lot about gender in this game and such, so you can read that if you want to hear more about that. Essentially, Ubisoft is a studio that has had some massive problems with sexism, and I think that plays into the game and the story. As a game, I went into it wanting to play it because I wanted to figure out what exactly it is about Ubisoft games, Ubisoft world, open world experiences that people still love and come back to time and time again. I haven't played an Ubisoft game since 2012 with Assassin's Creed Revelations, which is a game I do not like.
Yeah, people liked AC2 and Brotherhood a lot, and are much colder on Revelations, is my feeling.
Yeah, Revelations has tower defense.
Oh,
so we'll just leave it. So we'll just leave it at that. But Valhalla, I was surprised by some things in this game. I was early on. I had joked to a friend that, yeah, this game is starting real slow and real buggy, and I bet it's going to be so much better when I go to England. And the thing was, it was. The way that they have done England and how it was East Anglia and such at the time. This game is set in the 9th century. They've really made something gorgeous. It is an environment that does so much with the landscape, and it's very pretty in a lot of ways, but it has this sort of mysterious, arcane sensibility to it. You'll be going through the world, and in a similar way to Breath of the Wild, where you'll stumble across something that you're not really sure what it is, but this has some darker implications because there's some things with druids and arcane magic that they're going to go into more with DLC, but it gives this world a very mystical and somewhat dangerous air to it that I really appreciated. It made going through the world keep you on your toes a bit. Narratively, it does some very interesting things. To spoil a little bit of it, you don't stay in England. You go to North America at one point, and that's fascinating. And you go to worlds which are not of this world, we'll say. In a non-Assassin's Creed way that is also an Assassin's Creed way. We'll leave it at that. But those sections are incredible. I was very blown away by what they did with these landscapes, and I would probably recommend the game just for those sections. It's a interesting game that came from a studio that has a lot of troubles, and criticism that it gets is going to be well deserved. But I do understand a bit more about why people love Ubisoft games, and there is a decent deal of personality to make this unique.
Without saying it, you basically said this involves Norse mythology in ways that maybe you don't expect going in. But I think that's something that Ubisoft is sort of unafraid to do. Now that Assassin's Creed isn't just about people going back in time and exploring a conflict between two secret organizations, they're like Assassin's Creed Odyssey knocks on the door of Greek myth a little bit, even though but it's not about Greek myth the way that a different game on our list is. And so they're trying to blend elements of mysticism and myth into a game that's a little bit more grounded in history in a way that is very interesting to me, and is sort of consistent with what I thought more recent Assassin's Creed games were like. But you gave it a pretty good review. I think, Eva, you gave it an 85 overall. But so the RPG elements and the action elements are at least fun to execute, and not just seeing how myth and history interact, right?
I'd say that the RPG elements, like with the I know that this was talked about in the Origins review that was done a few years ago. The RPG elements are a bit weak. This is not the weakest. One of the weakest parts of the game is that the skill tree is just ridiculous and just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And basically, there's no necessity of choice. You just kind of keep going down it, and it's a lot more like the Crystarium in terms of being linear. So it doesn't seem like that at first, but it 100% is. So the RPG stuff in dialogue and in some of the world choices can be pretty good, depending on the character you play as, essentially. But the mechanical side of it is still leaving something to be wanted.
All right. I don't know if this makes me more or less interested in Assassin's Creed. Again, I've only played one Assassin's Creed game, and it was one older than Revelations. So, but I am at least curious enough to think about playing. It would probably be Origins if I were to play one in 2021. But I'm glad that this one was at least pretty good, in spite of the labor and employee respect struggles that Ubisoft has had recently. They're not the only game studio that is that is guilty of those things, but it has not been a squeaky clean year for them. Let's say,
Right.
but this hasn't been a squeaky clean year for a lot of people. But let's keep talking about it anyway. Zach, what's another 2020 item we should hit off?
I feel like we should talk about Necrobrista.
Yeah.
All right. This is my favorite.
Random.
This is my favorite death pun, at least since Necromancing the Stone. So yeah, let's talk about this one.
I know Alana played this as well. So Necrobrista is a visual novel in the purest sense of the word visual. Like it is the most visual game I've maybe ever played, and I say that without hyperbole. It's a game about. Basically, the idea is that there's this cafe that people come to in like the 24 hours before they die, before they pass over to whatever is next. And it's about the people who come through that cafe largely. I mean, it has like a larger overarching story, but really it's about the people who come there. And it does an amazing job of telling the stories of those people who come through that cafe. And also telling it really subtly and really visually. The art style and the direction and the cinematography, honestly, I mean, it sounds pretentious, but it's true, it's just amazing in this game. Like the very few gameplay elements there are really bad, like horrifically bad. Like so much so that I don't even want to talk about them because like they don't even really matter. Like the thing that matters is like the story and the characters and the visuals are stunning. Like if they turn this into an anime, I would watch it tomorrow.
Oh my god, yeah.
Shoot, there is an anime that's a little bit like that. That's like the bar. Everyone goes to a bar in purgatory or limbo.
Yes. Death Parade.
Death Parade, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a little bit like Death Parade, which is a remarkably depressing anime for having a banging, happy theme song.
This is way better than Death Parade, but yes, I have seen
all right.
it.
I thought Death Parade was all right.
Truthfully. It really is. I mean, like I like Death Parade, honestly, but it's a remarkable achievement in like storytelling and like so many things. And like when I reviewed it, like I wrestled with like, should I give this an editor's choice because the gameplay is so bad? But like it's so like I don't think I've ever played a video game that does visuals as well as Necrobrista does, and I think it deserves recognition for that.
Oh, totally, yeah. This game made me feel stuff. Like, I think the dialogue is incredible in this game, and I remember one of the writers for the game wrote up like a article about how a lot of critique of the game, not ours and not a few others, like focused on how the dialogue felt unnatural, and I never ever felt that, and I don't know whether that's just because I'm familiar with some like Australian television or Australian films, or whether unfortunately because England colonized Australia and they probably have some similar dialogue tropes to what we do. Like, it felt so warm about a game about like dying and passing over. Like, there are some really touching moments that are really sad, and I had to stop numerous times, but like ultimately it's really hopeful. And I think Maddie in particular, who is the main character, I say, she's the owner of the bar. Oh my god, I love her to pieces.
She's delightful.
I resonate with her so much. She's so great. Yeah, like Zach said, the gameplay is not good at all. Like, I played on Steam and it's not very good, and I'm sure they're working on it. And there's free DLC coming out for it as well. I think there's one already out, which I think is just a concept. I think it's just concept art though. I haven't checked it out yet.
You said art and Necrobrista, I'm there.
But yeah, there's some extra stories coming around for some of the characters. But yeah, like it feels like one of those like picture books that you like flick through and they animate as you go away. And the way like the characters like stop and move and start and things happen, and I was just watching it go through, and I was like, oh my word. I was like, yeah, it's a narrative treat, I would say. Yeah. I love it. I adore it.
And I think it's important to know that it's like an 8 to 10 hour thing. Like, it's not expensive. Like you can go and experience one of the best stories told in 2020. in 8 to 10 hours, and it's remarkably well told. Like I'm still thinking about it. I think about it every day. Honestly, it's so good. It's so good. The music is great too. Like I love that Gabrisa so much.
Well, that is a full-throated endorsement. Do we have a review of it on the site?
We do.
Yeah, Zach wrote it.
By moi. Yeah.
All right.
It's really good. It's one of my favorite reviews we've done, frankly. I really like it.
Yeah, I mean, this game is at least worth a screenshot safari or Google image search, and if the story is as good as you say it is, probably worth a play as well. On the Steam wishlist it goes.
I mean, like, I don't want to oversell it. I mean, like, the gameplay stuff is so bad. But, like, I played it pre-release, and I was playing it on a phone, and I've heard it's slightly better on a computer.
Probably.
Slightly.
I don't know.
It's awful. It's truly terrible on a phone. But it doesn't matter. Like, I don't care. Like, it's totally irrelevant to me. Like, it's there. It's like this thing I have to click through to get to the good stuff, and like it doesn't detract from the experience in any meaningful way.
Yeah.
Sounds like the extended combat sequences in 13 Sentinels.
I mean, they're not terrible. Though.
Yeah, but there's still a means to an end, and the end is the the excellent plot and visuals.
Mm-hmm.
But I should be a huge fan of the combat 13 Sentinels, so I don't know. I think I'm the only one here who likes it.
It's all right, but I don't think it's the star of the show or even close.
Oh yeah, for sure it isn't.
But maybe isn't as overwhelmingly negative as the gameplay elements seem to be, per the discussion for Necrobarista, per the discussion we're having right now.
Yeah, well, again, they're like it's like 5 to 10% of that game.
Okay,
like most. Yeah, so don't worry about it. It's like. I don't know, you don't play visual novels for the gameplay, do you? Like, ever?
I don't.
No. I don't know. I tend to think that everyone just loves shooting arguments in Danganronpa, especially in the first one. It's just so it's so good. Just so many ludic delights.
And how about like seeking out pornography magazines in a certain visual novel that came out last year, Alana?
AI is still amazing.
Yeah,
right?
I love AI, but it had some parts that made you roll your eyes and some gameplay segments that did not live up to the rest of the game.
Like, the difference is like AI's gameplay segments were offensive, but like well executed. Necrobaristas are like not offensive at all, but like horribly executed, like remarkably badly.
It sounds like a lot of visual novels or narrative games sometimes have gameplay elements that don't live up to the story and visuals. Maybe I'm just noticing a pattern here.
Yeah, true. I just think that it's so insignificant that I think the story and the characters are way, way more important.
On to our Steam wish list, Necrobarista goes, but let's see what's something else on this giant list, because we're past the hour mark, and we are not even close to hitting 100 games yet. Nathan, what's something else on the list we have to address?
I'm trying to think of a game that we all have, or more people besides me have just played that I want to highlight.
No, that's all right. Follow your heart.
You can go off. I mean,
yeah.
Do you want to talk about Sakura Wars?
I kind of want to talk about Sakura Wars a little bit.
So let's talk about Sakura Wars. This is, I think, the 6th game in the series. The first 4 never left Japan. We got the 5th one as Sakura Wars So Long My Love for the PS2 and Wii over a decade ago. And this new Sakura Wars is a bit of a series reboot that came out in April in this year in most territories. And it has character designs by the legendary Tite Kubo of Bleach fame. I know it's Tite Kubo. And Nathan, you played this for review, or did someone else review it?
I played it for review.
All right, so tell us about Sakura Wars.
All right, so Sakura Wars is, I think I made the meme list for reviewers when I gave my pull-out quote for this game. I think my pull-out quote for this game, for anyone who hasn't seen, is, I seriously asked if I can give this game an anime out of 100 score. It's the closest I've ever felt to playing anime, aside from games based on existing anime. But for me, the anime lover in me just like fell in love with this game when it came out, just because it's just so overwhelmingly anime that like all sorts of tropes are in here. So we're talking about like the power of friendship and the belief in like what you love and stuff like that. Basically this entire story is just one big hammy big shonen story about like character growth and just I was talking about power of friendship already, but yeah, it just felt like an anime and I love it so much.
Have you played the previous Sakura Wars game? Because I've heard from people who have played this most recent one that if you played the other ones, it does some things to hurt that, I guess. Like if you have history with Sakura Wars, you might not like this one as much.
Yeah, because I think the main reason is they mentioned the previous cast, because basically this game takes place 10 years, or 11, 12 years, I can't quite remember. It's after the original Sakura Wars. So this is with a brand new cast of characters. The problem is that they mention that the old cast of characters is still around, or like, it's kind of spoilers that they're like stuck in some alternate dimension. But the only one who ever makes it out is the original Sakura, and people were just mad that they couldn't bring back everybody else. Well, so the Sumire too. Sumire is the real Sakura Wars is in the game as a whole. But the main issue is they have the existing cast somewhere, and they just don't really mention them. They're kind of tossed off to the side just to focus on the new members.
Yeah, that sounds like material for a sequel. And I remember a lot of people playing up Sakura Wars, or not a lot of people, in very niche circles. The older Sakura Wars games were very popular. Saturn imports. Maybe I think one of them came out for Dreamcast. I'd have to check a list to make sure.
It did.
Okay, yeah. And in one of the greatest television commercial campaigns of all time, Segata Sanshiro does have a scene with I think Sakura from Sakura Wars 2, I want to say. Yeah. So I'm very familiar with extremely shallow parts of the Sakura Wars universe because I've seen those commercials only 100 times. But this new one, at least, like, they're hitting the reset button a little bit because it's mostly about a new cast, and it's at least it's Sega being, open to the idea of reviving it in a larger way. Maybe if this one is successful, was kind of the vibe I got, at least. Like, they're like, hey, if this is popular, we'll make more, but where you have to have this be mostly about new characters because we want Tite Kubo to do all the character designs, and that's not the worst idea to me, but it had sort of a mixed reception at least to my knowledge, even though your review was quite positive, Nathan.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were kind of like just turned off by, like I said, just how anime it was, right? It was basically like full of just like all these like silly anime tropes that's. Like for me, I loved it because the game is just shameless with it. It's just like it doesn't really care that it's this anime, so that's why I love it so much. But I know a lot of people. It's not for everyone, like especially because you have the opportunity to just be a gigantic pervert in it. So,
oh goody, yeah. I was worried that Tokyo Mirage Sessions was slightly too anime for me. So maybe I'm not quite tight enough in the middle of the Venn diagram for Sakura Wars.
Probably not. No, this is more anime in Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
Yeah, isn't the combat different to previous games as well? This is an action RPG, right?
Oh yeah, the older ones were strategy RPGs.
Yeah, so
right.
Yeah, so the ones are like reminiscent of like stuff like Fire Emblem or Final Fantasy Tactics, and this one's more like kind of like Muso. I won't say it's more like more action game like.
Muso being, for the uninitiated, the Koei Tecmo Warriors series, Dynasty Samurai, Hyrule, One Piece Pirate, those kinds of warriors.
Quest Heroes.
Which is I knew it was an action and RPG, but I didn't know it quite went that far. I'm not the biggest Muso guy, although I have played multiplayer on them many times because a few of my close friends are Muso guys.
Not quite enough enemies for Muso, but it has the same kind of feeling.
So that was Sakura Wars. Let's see. I think it's time. I'm going to talk about one of my favorite games of the year. One of the two that I've been hinting at for this entire episode, Alana. We're going to the underworld and then trying to escape it over and over and over.
Oh yeah, let's bring Eva too.
Yeah, all right, let's do it.
I'm coming.
Alana, Eva, the three of us podcasted about 3 different Supergiant games earlier this month, Bastion, Transistor, and Pyre, and we mentioned this on all of those episodes, but Supergiant came out with their 4th game earlier this year, but it was in a early access campaign for over a year, maybe closer to 2 years before then. Hades came out for basically all the major systems. Or no. Was it only
Switch and
only
PC.
Switch and PC? Okay, yeah. I think early access was only PC in the Epic Game Store for a while, but then it's full. But then its full release was Switch and PC. It's weird that
it was the very first Epic Game Store. Epic Game Store launched the day that it went into early access.
Right,
yeah,
and
it was at the Game Awards 2018, and it came out of early access on the 17th of September.
And I think this is Nintendo's revenge for never getting a version of Pyre on Wii U or Switch, because PS4 had Pyre, but the Switch doesn't. So now this is the flip side of that. But anyway, Hades is a roguelike action RPG that plays like Diablo in that it's an isometric action RPG where you sort of build your character and go through vaguely rectangular dungeons, but it's not like Diablo in that you complete a character build in maybe 30 minutes or less instead of hundreds of hours. So basically it's steeped in Greek mythology. You are the son of Hades named Zagreus. You're trying to escape Hades once you realize that there might be something for you out there on the outside world. And as you escape, the Olympian gods, or 9 of the Olympian gods, Zeus, Poseidon, and that side of the family, are very encouraging and send you aid in the form of boons and skills and upgrades. And so every time you complete a room, you get some kind of equipment or boon or upgrade that is different every time you try to escape the underworld. But it is breathtakingly good. Like, the moment-to-moment action is crisp and fun, and the upgrades are all huge and varied and awesome, and it's different every time you play. The more times you try to escape, you use the resources you collect to upgrade yourself and upgrade your room and your setting and your bonuses. There's dozens and dozens of characters to interact with that give you help in different ways. And the dialogue is just brilliantly written, and it's also a very beautiful game visually and musically. And the more you unlock and the more you play, the more lore you get, the more gameplay options you get, and the more scenes you see. It is so good. Alana, you and I have talked about playing this game in a cleansing way. Like, sometimes you have a bad day, but you do 2 Hades runs, and even if you lose both of the runs, you just feel better, because this is such a feel-good game that is like incredibly deep, and you can play it for 30 minutes at a time or binge it for dozens of hours, and you will not see the bottom of the pool of wealth and fun that this game is. This is a contender for my game of the year, one of my favorite games in a long time, and I don't know, now I kind of want to go back and play it. Maybe you guys mind if I take a 35-minute break, or no? I'll wait for the podcast to end. We're doing a spoiler cast on Hades in a few weeks, or actually maybe next week. I got to check the spreadsheet, but I love this thing. Alana, go off.
Oh my god. Yeah, you summarized it perfectly. I think it's just, and I don't think this is the only roguelike to play with a story exclusively, but like you've said, if you die, you get like a new line of contextual dialogue, like, hey, you died against the Bull of Minos. Oh, I'd love his signature. Why don't you get that for me? Can you do that? And then Zagreus is just like, who is the son of Hades? He's just like, ugh, I'll think about it, kind of thing. And I'm just like, go on. Like, I think Supergiant have always been really good at writing characters, but this is like, I don't know, this is them at their best at everything. And like, whatever you think of Supergiant Games' catalogue, they're all good at different things, but this is everything across the board is at least great. Most of it outstanding, I would say. This is my game of the year. I have put 70 hours into it now, and we're still counting, and I don't think I'm ever going to stop playing it, at least in the next couple of months. Like, I'll pick it up for half an hour if I've had a really, really, really bad day, and it's like, I don't know, it just makes me feel really good, even if I die to Tisiphone or Megara or Lerny. I love the fact that he renames the Lernian Hydra.
Yeah, the Lernian Hydra is the boss of the second zone, or a skeletal version of it. And around the 30th time you face it or something, Zagreus just goes, you know what? I've been calling you Hydra the whole time. I gotta give you a name. Let's call you Lerny. And then for the rest of the game, you call the Hydra Lerny, and even when you face it, like in big bold letters at the top of the screen, Lerny will show up. And it's there's so many,
so good.
Yeah, there's so many like quiet like dialogue tricks and jokes and like sort of game design techniques that they sneak into this game that like it's I don't know if it's necessarily the best looking or best or best written Supergiant game, because their older games are so beautiful and so well written that it's very subjective. But I think it's almost inarguable that this is the best playing one, because just the action feels so tight and there's so much variety to the 6 weapons, and then multitude of boons and weapon upgrades and weapon changes. Because I mean, when you unlock the Guan Yu spear, it plays completely differently to the regular spear.
It's so good.
And
it's so good. I've not cleared with it yet, but it's so good.
Yeah, but,
like 6 weapons, 4 different variants in them, how many boons, 40 Daedalus hammers, and 20 different aspects on the mirror, and I'm like, have I had 2 similar runs? No, I don't think so.
like even if I go into a run saying, you know what, I had a sword Zeus chain lightning run that was awesome last time. I'm going to try and do another one of those, so you can equip the accessory that gives you a Zeus boon for free and try to target Zeus stuff as much as you can. It won't be the same, because this game does randomness and sort of designed like sort of intentional randomness or like guided randomness in a way that that never feels broken and is just, and again, whether like there is a end game, like there is a way to win, because you go through 4 zones and there's a boss at the end of each zone, and even beating the final boss, you'll get more rewards and more dialogue and more stuff. But like you could just beat this game over and over forever, and I don't know how far it goes, because I've only put about 40 or 45 hours in, but there is so much to this game that I have not seen the bottom of the pool, top of the mountain. Pick your analogy. I don't know. There's so much in here.
And something I really love about this game is that, like, I and all of us have seen so many depictions of Greek mythology. It's not really a fresh thing anymore. Especially for me during my childhood, like that was when Percy Jackson and the Olympians was at its height. So I was kind of subsumed in this. It was all around me, and I never really latched on to depictions of these figures, even though I enjoyed the myths. But the representations and the art of these characters in the game, which we've had for 2,000 plus years. They're
knocking on the door of 3,000, yeah.
Right, exactly. Like we've known of these characters and these archetypes for so long, and yet these are some of my favorite depictions of them ever. You have Dionysus, who is so funny, so laid back.
They made him a handsome
Zag man.
Yeah, a handsome, muscular dude, bro, who clearly likes to just get drunk and party. And his when he gives you boons, you can make enemies hungover and get bonuses from drinking nectar and from fountains.
Exactly, and these characters are not just all how basically the more conservative forces of the world wanted to see Greekness as like this, blonde hair, blue eyed thing, which is totally not accurate. And so you have black gods, you have South Asian gods, you have characters that are queer, you have so much more that's representative of the totality and the kind of beauty of Greek myth that isn't just this monolithic idea where we think of these obelisks and we think of these columns in later Roman times and everything. These are living, breathing characters that are so fresh and interesting and fun to interact with.
Oh my god, yeah. I would completely agree with that. It just retells Greek myth so well. And also, like, I'm so glad. Is this one of the first times we've, like, most media depicts like Achilles and Patroclus as not queer. They are queer in this game, and they deserve
looking at
to
you,
be.
Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Screw you.
I mean, the Alexander movie was a sort of bad depiction of queerness, and then the Troy movie was a bad erasure of queerness, and they don't erase any of it in Hades.
The Troy movie was bad, yes.
Yeah.
As with Alexander, yes.
Yeah, but just look at I don't know, like Ganymede or Achilles and Patroclus's relationship. Or what's her name? Or Sappho. There's like in ancient Greece had more than just heteronormative ideas in their culture and in their mythology, and Hades explores it all very smartly. And like I'm a big fan of not all of them, but many of the God of War games, and they focus on like the darkness and the brutality of Greek myth in a way that I thought was fair. But very specific, and if anything, ultra violent or too violent. But Hades portrays them not just humorously, and not just and not just through an LGBT lens. Like it sort of takes a view of everything. They make it very clear that the gods are powerful and dangerous, and in late parts of the storyline, there's concern that you might anger them and bad things might happen. And also as Zeus as a cunning philanderer and not just a stoic father of the gods. And Hades himself is maybe the best character in the game. Like he's grumpy and upset that his son is angry at him and trying to escape his realm, and he mocks you and taunts you every time that you come back through the river Styx after you die. But these portrayals are brilliantly written and take a focus that is not exactly traditional, but not disrespectful or inaccurate either. Like Demeter is portrayed as a winter goddess, and really she's the goddess of the seasons, and her form and her mood is affected by what happened between her, Hades and Persephone. But because of where this takes place in the myths of those characters, she's a winter goddess who who expresses an interest in Zagreus, but isn't privy to the whole story of what's going on in Hades right now, and it fits. like these are cartoon offbeat representations of the Greek gods, but everything fits in a way that blows me away. Zagreus is a completely fictional new character, but I also love that everyone just loves him. Like
Zag is in Greek myth.
What? Zagreus? Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
I thought it was made for the game.
I mean, he's not talked about much, but he is he is existing as a minor character. Yeah.
All right. Well, he's an extremely minor character because I knew pretty little about him, but I think it is. I do still find it remarkable that how much everyone loves him. Like all of the Olympian gods he interacts with are like, man, we can't wait to meet you in person, man. Get up here as soon as you can. And the residents of the underworld, like Nyx and Thanatos and Hypnos, are all just very friendly with him because Zagreus is just such a just positive.
He's a polite idiot,
yes.
Isn't he? He's perfect.
And the himbo word gets thrown around with him quite often, and I think it's apt.
Yes.
Somewhat.
But yeah, go on.
And something in terms of like the development of this, we've talked a lot about Supergiant over this month.
We have.
With the writing in this game, it's remarkable that a former GameSpot editor-in-chief who then went to produce Command and Conquer over the past 10 years has cemented himself as one of the best writers in games with Greg Kasavin from Supergiant. So just like a big shout out to him for just him and the whole Supergiant team. These games are excellent, and Hades is really feeling like just the cherry on top of what they've done over the past 10 years.
I enjoyed all 4 games that they've made, but Hades is my favorite. I think it is the most successful gameplay-wise and just incredibly well written and beautiful to behold. I love Hades. It's either that or another game we'll get to is my game of the year. So, okay, we've popped off on Hades, and we will pop off on Hades later when it gets a dedicated spoiler cast in January, but we still have plenty of other games to discuss here. Let's see. Alana, did any of us here play Trails of Cold Steel 4?
No, and I kind of promised everybody I would. Unfortunately, I got Trails burnout, but I do know a bit about it, and Caitlin's review covers everything really well on the site. She has said it's probably her least favorite.
Oh, wow.
And that seems to be the general consensus among the fandom. Even when it came out in Japan, I remember a lot of mixed reception to it because of the pacing is probably at its worst. Unfortunately, like, I really love Cold Steel 3, and it does have its issues. I like the pacing on that, but a lot of people have problems with it. But Cold Steel 3 was meant to be the end of that arc, but they decided to stretch it out over another game, and you can tell, apparently, that this is where it happens. I'm not going to go into any plot because I do know a fair bit about it. I have spoiled myself extensively. There are some real high moments in it, like some real incredible, like, wow, oh my god, celebratory moments. And like, I don't know if you would consider this a spoiler, but the prologue, if you've played every game up until this point, the prologue reunites like 3 of the most important characters from Sky and 3 of the most important characters from Owl and Zero, the Crossbell games, which we still haven't got a localization for.
There are ways to play those games in English, but there is no official localization. I feel like I need to mention to our listening audience that probably knew that, but maybe didn't.
You can go and watch our Twitch VODs, because Scott played through Zero on our channel, and I believe he played through Owl on his personal channel, so definitely come to the Discord and find out how you can do that. But yeah, like, it's like the best playing game in the series. Like, some of the systems in Cold Steel 3 were a bit broken. Like, you could basically stun lock the final boss and not get hit by it, because I did that. But like, they've really tightened up a lot of the brave orders, which are like the commands you give the rest of your party, and they've made the the Divine Knight combat a little bit more tricky, which I think it needed to be, because again, in Cold Steel 3 it was really easy. But like, if this game does one thing really well other than celebrate its characters, I think it gives New Class 7, in especially the first act, like, their time to shine. And New Class 7 are all way better developed than the whole of Class 7 from Cold Steel 1 and 2. Like, Juna is great. I love her to pieces in Cold Steel 3, and she is essentially the protagonist of the first part of the game. And I kind of wish she'd stayed that way, because I like Green, but Green's annoying and perfect, and just like, oh, I'm going to give you a head pat, and I'm just like, go away, you're a teacher, stop.
I don't hate Reen, but I was frustrated with him very often. I played Cold Steel 1 last year and Cold Steel 2 earlier this year, so I'm way behind. But I think Reen, you know, I've had my challenges with him, and I'm a little glad that the recently revealed Kuro no Koseki, or Trails of the Black, Trails in Darkness, whatever it ends up being called, I'm glad they're moving on to new main characters. I'm very glad.
He looks like a right asshole, and I'm so excited.
The main character kind of looks like I don't know, Mirror World Reen, in a way that I really hope he's a bit of a jerk, like, because Reen was a little bit too anime good boy, but by 5
anime good boy, and like I am your teacher, and I will also do
okay, harem anime good boy.
It drives me insane, like, the way they deal with teacher-student relationships in the Cold Steel series,
this is the worst one for it as well.
Oh,
because
good.
It's legitimate confirmed dates and romance, and it's most of the girls, like, including the kids you teach.
How delightful.
No.
Yeah. So I am not going to date anybody. I'm not dating anybody.
You should have said, so you're saying this should have been Juna dating all the girls instead of Reen dating all the girls.
What I'm saying is it should be Yusuf and Machias, basically. So,
all right, we're in agreement. That's the OTP.
You do get to see, like, you do get to see old favorites. There are some really good things to this game, and it's some people's favorite. Like, that's the thing. It's also the longest. Like, I've heard completion times around Persona 5 lengths, like 110, and I'm like, oh, yeah. So I do really want to play it, and I've got I do own Zero no Kiseki, and I do want to play them, but I am a little burnt out on Trails. Hajimari came out in Japan this year, and that's meant to be really good and relatively short, I've heard, like 40 to 50 hours, which
doesn't sound like a Trails game to me.
Hey, Trails in the Sky is only 30 to 40, but the Cold Steel games...
it took me 50, so...
yeah, well, it took me like 35 or something, but I mean, the Cold Steel games are all over 60.
And the Hour and Zero are both 80 at least, yeah.
And
second, yeah.
Cold Steel 4 and Hajimari are games number 9 and 10 in this saga. That is a lot of RPG. So I think that Trails Burnout is extremely reasonable to feel, especially if you've played multiples of these in the past year or two. So and I mean, Caitlin, if anyone is a Trails warrior on RPG Fan, it's her, and Scott is probably second in command.
Scott.
So for Caitlin to be a little cold on it is a little alarming. That's a red flag. So
her review was really positive. She gave it an 85, so it's not like a negative review at all. But there's just like,
but she adores the others so much that that feels like lower end of the spectrum.
Trails of lukewarm steel.
Mm-hmm, very much so. Yeah, like I think I'm still going to play it 100%. When I get to it, I don't know, because I'm going to resub to Final Fantasy 14 at some point.
Oh boy,
but
me
like,
too.
Yeah, I do love this series, and I think playing Sky as well is just kind of knocked my appreciation of Cold Steel a little bit down. Like, there's something so much warmer about Sky than Cold Steel, and yeah, I love the world and I love everything that's going on in it, but like, I think burnout is understandable. And like when the shortest game length in your series is like 40 hours and the longest is 100, and all of them vary between that length, like I totally get.
And there are 9 or 10 of them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just not an easy series.
Do the math. That's a lot of hours.
Yeah.
And again, too many games. I don't know when I'll get to Cold Steel 4. I do have interest in playing all or most of those, but I am much closer to trying out Crossbell than continuing beyond Cold Steel 2, which again I beat only a few months ago. And
you've got to play third first, actually. So
yeah, that's true. I'm also I would be lying if I said I wasn't interested in Koro no Kiseki, and if we get that before some of the others, that's at least a decision to make. But we got another Trails game this year, and that is definitely a noteworthy date in RPG Fan, because we are Falcom fans a lot of the time on the website.
Mm-hmm.
We've done East and Trails games on Retro Encounter before. But let's see, what else is on their list that we have to discuss?
I mean, I feel like we have to talk about Yakuza.
Oh, we do. Let's talk about Yakuza. I said that Hades was my co-game of the year. The other one is Yakuza Like a Dragon, the artist formerly known as Yakuza 7. And it like the Yakuza games have sort of always been action games with elements of, beat 'em ups and action RPGs. But Yakuza 7 is a full-on turn-based RPG.
Yes, it is.
But I have to say, I mean, I've played 4 Yakuza games now, 5 if you count the disappointing Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise. But even though this one has a completely different battle system, it is Yakuza as hell, because it still is exploring a very large urban space based on real-life Japanese cities. It still is a very melodramatic, semi-serious crime drama story with some completely off-the-wall wacky writing, in it, mostly in its side content and in its specific characters. And it sort of unites all of these weird open-world humor and serious storytelling with some elaborate combat. It stitches all of those things together in a package that is probably my favorite JRPG since Dragon Quest XI, which is a coincidence in that Yakuza 7
or not
openly loves Dragon Quest. Like they even explain the RPG combat by having the main character Ichiban Kasuga say in one of the opening scenes, "Well, yeah, I love Dragon Quest, so whenever I get into fights, I just imagine it like a Dragon Quest battle."
I've seen that clip so many times and it makes me laugh every single time.
It's delightful.
It's so cute.
And they, it's not a set it and forget it statement. It said at the beginning, like throughout the game, he mentions that he grew up in some pretty remarkable circumstances. A penniless orphan that was raised by girls and all of the girls and a manager of a brothel. But he spent his free time playing Dragon Quest games in these unused rooms. So Ichiban is sort of deep down is a good person who just wants to be a hero like the heroes of his favorite video games. But a chance encounter with a Yakuza when he was a teenager sort of had him commit to a lifestyle of noble criminal that is perpetrated by the Yakuza series in ways that sometimes are very hard to explain. But Yakuza Like a Dragon is a break from the previous Yakuza games in that for the first time the main character is not Kazuma Kiryu, it's this new guy Ichiban, and it tells a pretty well self-contained story. If this is your first Yakuza game, all you're going to miss out on is some cameos. It's a perfectly self-contained story with a mostly new cast of characters. And if you meet a guy and someone says, "Oh, he's been in Kamurocho forever," or "Oh, he's a Tojo clan legend," just keep in mind that's a guy that was in a previous Yakuza game. That's all you need to know. This is a really cool crime story, really cool Japanese RPG with so much extra content that it is a Las Vegas buffet of stuff.
That's a great analogy.
That makes it sound not good, except it actually is good.
Yeah, but the thing is, just like a Las Vegas buffet, there is so much stuff here. Even if you don't like every item on the table, you'll like probably enough of them to get some fun out of the game. I'm underselling how much stuff is in this game. There's a full-on Mario Kart in this game called Dragon Kart. There are dozens of mini games, including like simple things like darts and golf and baseball batting cages, to things like a rhythm karaoke games and sort of a a reaction game where you watch movies and try not to fall asleep while an army of sheep try to knock you out.
What?
Yeah, there's so much in this game that I could not possibly explain it all, which is why we're doing a spoiler cast on it in January.
Jesus.
But it has a class system that's like a Dragon Quest 6 or 7 class system, but the jobs in the job system are things like construction worker, bar hostess, dominatrix, or called Night Queen. Let's see. Bodyguard, break dancer, multiple versions of criminal or gangster. But it all comes together in a package that is definitely a Yakuza game, because it has all the open world weirdness and writing of games like Yakuza 0 and Yakuza Kiwami, which I played earlier this year. But plays kind of like Persona 5 in the battle layout, and feels like a Dragon Quest game when you're tinkering with the job system. It is, I'm explaining this game in terms of things that I absolutely love. I mean, I even like detective and crime stories. So this game feels like it was concocted in a lab specifically for me to love it. It is basically that. But Hades is so good that I can't give Yakuza Like a Dragon an unequivocal number one. Unequivocal number one. Sorry. Whoa.
I am most of the way through Yakuza Like a Dragon. You've covered almost everything I had to say about it, Sollosi. So well done. I mean,
this is a game I was ready to pop off on.
Oh, I gotcha. I am not quite there on this game, but to try to say something a little bit unique about it, I feel like we are in an age of games that are trying to deal with norms progressing, in terms of our conversations about gender, in terms of our conversations about underprivileged people. And Yakuza Like a Dragon, and all the things you just said about it, everyone who listens to this podcast regularly knows that I love Dragon Quest and I love turn-based combat, and it does those things remarkably well. But one of the things it also does remarkably well is dealing with people who are underprivileged. It deals with people who are homeless and the positions they've been in. And I found myself in those positions earlier in my life, and it deals with those things remarkably well. It doesn't deal with everything remarkably well. There's a soap land owner, which basically means a brothel owner, in a way. It makes me want to like identify with this man who like controls these women, who also talks down to these women, and I'm like, no, screw you. I'm sorry, like he's just a horrible human, and I don't care when he dies. Spoiler alert, sorry. But the rest of the game deals with like people who are underprivileged and underrepresented in ways that are really sincere. And that outside of anything else, like I love the turn-based combat. I love all the ridiculousness of this game. Like I love that. Like I had a fight against a tiger earlier today, and it was amazing. And it didn't feel outside of the realm of this game at all. It was amazing.
There's one boss fight where a chimpanzee escapes from its cage and takes over a large vehicle of construction equipment, and you fight a construction backhoe piloted by a chimpanzee. That is an optional boss fight.
Well, that's an optional boss fight that I will be having. And I'm sort of a Yakuza newbie. Like I've played Judgment, which is not really a Yakuza game, but like I had to play it for review in like a kind of a short period of time, so like I kind of blasted through it. But this is my first true Yakuza experience, and I am going back to all of them because like give me more, give me more, give me more. This is my game of the year. It does all the things that I want it to do, but also like gives respect to like all the things that I've been asking games to give respect to. It's a remarkable achievement, and Final Fantasy VII Remake, you have nothing on Yakuza Like a Dragon. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, again, everything you said is accurate, and they really make this a game about the downtrodden in a way. Because again, Ichiban was an orphan raised by people in a brothel, and very early in the game, you spend some time with homeless people in a community of them, and it draws specific attention to the plight of the homeless in Japan. And also, there's multiple parts of the game where they talk about the struggle of immigrants coming into Japan, and how like there are sleazy politicians that are doing real good, and squeaky clean politicians that are doing some real evil. And they talk about how like no one is really black or white. The morals of modern Japan exist in shades of gray in a way that is very sensitive, even though this game is sometimes really insensitive and really sexist. I'm not thrilled that the female characters have 4 jobs and the male characters have 8 or 9 jobs.
I haven't even noticed that yet.
So there's a lot in this game, and it's not all perfect, but so much of it is super fun and thought-provoking that it's a top 2 favorite game of the year for me. And I only got into Yakuza for real earlier this year, but since then I've played 0, Kiwami 1, Kiwami 2, and Like a Dragon, and really, really like all of them. And Like a Dragon's one of the good ones. I don't know if it's my favorite Yakuza game, but it's up there and super, super good. We still have so many more on this list to cover, but I think we should probably only leave it to 1 or 2 more. Does anyone want to volunteer something to be the final note?
I mean, I'd like to hear more about If Founds from Lana. Maybe I have interest in that for some reason, but
yeah, I mean, I can do definitely. I haven't been back to it since May. I totally recommend it. It's a kind of like some other games. It's sort of a visual novel that plays with like identity and explores the life of a trans woman who in Ireland. And again, it's another game, interestingly, that deals with like the downtrodden is not the right word, but like people coming up from unprivileged backgrounds and like trying to fit in rural Ireland. And yeah, it's I think I said in my review that it maybe is one of the best games at using mechanics in a way that tells the story in a way like Celeste does. Like, you know, Celeste is difficult because it's about overcoming mental health and overcoming adversity. If Found is about erasing your past because it's about somebody rewriting or like coming to terms with their identity and like erasing all of the things they want to forget. And you have to erase all of that stuff. And it's really emotional because like the diary entries that you have to read are so evocative. Like it's things like going over arguments with her mother or like friendships or boyfriends or girlfriends and like people that she's spent these times with. And you read them and you have to let it soak in, because like you have to erase everything on the screen. And there's something really powerful about that. And I think the art style as well lends itself to that. Like it's all scribbly, it's very much plays with color and space, and it's really, really wonderful. I'm going to recommend the mobile version or the Switch version, which came out earlier this year. I don't think mouse and keyboard is great for erasing stuff. It doesn't quite feel natural. But I've heard like it's kind of been swept under the radar a little bit. But I think I'm not a trans person. But I'm definitely like, it's maybe the best representation I've seen for that that part of the queer community, and absolutely deserves to be spoken about and played more, I think.
Yeah, like I have a lot of interest in it, and you're a person of the queer community whose opinion on these things I definitely respect, and seeing this, hearing about the integration of mechanics, like when someone says Celeste, my brain dings like, oh, Celeste. So that sounds really interesting to me, and something I'd really like to get into, especially having that integration of mechanics, which is kind of the main thing that I look for in a game.
Definitely.
So that sounds great.
Yeah, it is really, really good. Like, there's two stories that play together. There's like a girl in space and this girl in Ireland, and they don't always mesh together perfectly, but like there is just something about the way it's told and the way it ties up that's really, really, really beautiful. It's only about 3 hours long as well, so you can easily do it in like an afternoon, and you can get some slightly different outcomes as well. So yeah, I highly recommend it. And actually, as a quick shout out as well, because I think there are 2 games this year that have done such a brilliant job with queer representation. Ikenfell, I don't love this game, but oh my god, like this is written by, like, developed and written by a group of community of queer people, and it's stunning. Like, it's such a good, like, it's the first game I've ever played where someone's used neo-pronouns, so like I've never ever seen that in a game, and like I had to start educating myself on it at the time, because I was like, I've never seen this before, and it was really refreshing. Like, every character in that game is fits into a queer identity or anything, and it all feels so natural in the same way that Time Spinner does. I didn't love playing it as much as I did Time Spinner, but
there are a few games I love playing as much as I love playing Time Spinner, to be fair.
Yeah, but like it's just so cheery about it. Like, everybody's queer in that game and nobody questions it. It's not, it's so baked into that world, and like it should be everywhere. I've said this a million times and I never feel like I'm articulate enough about it, but yeah, like those are 2 really, if you're looking for good queer representation in video games, like If Found, and Ikenfell. Ikenfell is on, I think it's on all consoles. It might even be on Game Pass, if I remember rightly. So yeah, I would recommend you check both of them out if you're interested.
Hilariously enough, the only other game that I've ever seen use neo-pronouns is Final Fantasy Type 0. Because the Muggles use, I believe they use like Z, Zir, Zem.
Yes, the same
pronouns.
Yeah, that's the same ones that the character uses. Oh, and if you're into video game music, Samus does one of the tracks on the soundtrack composed by the people who did the Steven Universe soundtrack, and it's so good. It's amazing.
I adore Samus. I first learned about her. Her stage name is Samus, spelled with 2 M's, but otherwise like the Metroid protagonist. The convention I attend almost every year, MagFest, she performed at one 4 or 5 years ago, and in the middle of her set, she pointed out one of her young cousins on the side of the concert space selling Girl Scout cookies. So there was like a giant crowd of people watching Samus, and then a line on the table next to her of people buying Girl Scout cookies.
Aww.
It was the best. So some breathtakingly smart rapping about video game characters and Girl Scout cookies in the same breath. You love to see it.
You love to see it.
found was the name of the game you last discussed, and I think we may have found the end of the podcast because I do not want this to go into the 3-hour range. I get anxious the closer up any podcast episode gets to 2 hours. In fact, so. I mean, this list again was 107 games. There was no way we were ever going to get to all of them. There's remakes of Rune Factory 4 and Demon's Souls, a new Pokemon Mystery Dungeon remake. I'm just going to mention a couple of them. I'm not going to try and speed read the whole thing like I have sometimes done in the past. A console release of Bug Fables that Alana reviewed for the site. Some really interesting mobile games like Xeno Alice and Tales of Crestoria. A remake of Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town. Now Story of Seasons Friends of Mineral Town. Let's see. Death End Request, which is a game I saw at E3 years and years ago. Star Renegades, a really interesting turn-based roguelike that Greg Delmage reviewed for the site. Genshin Impact, maybe the biggest mobile RPG of the year. A lot of people really love that thing. Torchlight 3 finally came out, even though we thought it was dead and revived. There's a... Cyberpunk. Yeah, that happened.
Cyberpunk is still happening.
It's happening every day, and it'll probably be happening the day this comes out. So
Cyberpunk, the second biggest RPG release of December after Taiko no Tatsujin Rhythmic Adventure Pack.
Yeah.
Don-chan rides again. My Tales of Fantasy Draft flex pick.
I was going to say a flex, yeah. There was a new Paper Mario game this year as well.
That's right, Origami King came out over the summer.
Yeah, it had some positive, two ends of the spectrum, positive and negative reception, depending on how RPG you wanted it to be.
I think people want another game like the first Paper Mario or Thousand Year Door, but Nintendo's not going to give that to us. They want Paper Mario to stay unique, and in terms they keep re-breaking and refixing something that a lot of fans think wasn't broken in 2003 or whenever TTYD came out.
Yeah, just play Bug Fables. A couple I want to shout out. Moon finally got a release date. Remix RPG, the PS1 game, and that was really, really. I think. Isaac reviewed it, and he was glowing about it, so I absolutely recommend you go and read that review.
Can't wait to check it out.
Yeah, I really wanted to pick it up. I didn't have enough time. Spiritfarer is like a management sim about dying and death, which I've started playing recently, and it's really gorgeous and really interesting, so I'm excited to dig into that. Paradise Killer is another game as well I'm playing through right now, and it is... it's another game I struggled to describe. It is one of the most bizarre murder mystery adventure games I have ever played. And I've played Danganronpa.
I love murder mystery adventure games, not just your Danganronpas and your Rights Phoenix, but that one is something I'm very interested in. And now's the time to shout out before we go into housekeeping. So please, the rest of the panel, go for it.
The couple games I want to put out are Sakuna, Rise and Ruin.
Oh yeah.
That's right up there with with 13 Sentinels for being a game I saw at E3 every year. No idea when it would come out, and it finally came out in 2020.
Yeah.
The game's beautiful looking.
Oh shit! What was the other game I was supposed to say?
Hyrule Warriors.
Hyrule Warriors. There we go.
Yep.
Thank you. For Age of Calamity. I'm still making my way through that game, and I had to stop because I'm playing Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon for review. But Age of Calamity is from what I heard, it's a great take on the Zelda timeline, and apparently it changes something. So apparently Breath of the Wild 2 might be a little bit different than what we thought it might be.
Yeah, Age of Calamity is a prequel to Breath of the Wild. Nikki reviewed Age of Calamity for the website, and she really liked it. It's a Musou game, so it'll play like those, but it's with a bunch of the cast of Breath of the Wild, including all of the what were they called? Are they the sages?
Champions.
The champions, yeah. I knew it wasn't sages, but we have a really good version of playable Zelda and Impa and the four champions, and of course Link and I think there's even one of the Guardian robots is an ally that you can play as this time.
I think so. It's the little tiny one that you get at the beginning of the game.
All right, yeah. A mascot Guardian robot. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
We've talked about 13 or 14 games in exhaustive detail, and a handful more in less detail. And again, maybe the less we talk about Cyberpunk, the better. But I think this is it for Retro Encounter for 2020. Thank you so much for joining us on 51 episodes of Retro Encounter, including 28 panelists. 2 of them were retired RPG fan staff that came back for a few episodes. 5 of those panelists recorded their first Retro Encounter episode in 2020. And again, let's go for another 51 or 52 more in 2021. The spirit is willing, but time will tell. Hopefully 2021 is an improvement on 2021, speaking in a general sense, because 2021 was a hell of a year. Thank you for visiting hell.
You mean 2020?
2020.
Yeah, don't jinx 2021.
We're not
don't
there
say that
yet,
about
dude.
2021.
All right. I'm sorry. You can delete all that. 2020 was a hell of a year. Thank you for visiting hell. But let's talk about 2021 a little bit more. We mentioned we're doing spoiler casts of Hades and Yakuza. That's coming in January. We're also doing 2 episodes on Baten Kaido's Eternal Wings and Lost Ocean coming in January. And you know what? I haven't said this yet in the podcast, but now's the time to do it. February, we've already chosen the game we're playing that month. It is going to be the DS classic Radiant Historia, developed by Atlas during the peak of their powers. Yoko Shimomura soundtrack, really interesting time travel storyline. I played it, 8 years ago, and I'm very interested to revisit it. But you know what? We've already planned out a couple games in 2021, and I think I'm ready to tease them a little bit. What say you guys?
Let's do it.
All right, okay. We played Persona 2 Innocent Sin in 2020, a couple months ago, and we're going to do its sequel, Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, coming sometime in 2021. I don't know exactly when. And there's another SMT game that we've been talking about playing for years on the podcast, and I think we're finally going to pull the trigger in 2021. So 2021 is going to have 3 Atlas games minimum, Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, Radiant Historia, and another SMT game that is not a Persona game, but I'll let the speculation up to you. And so that's 4 games we've talked about, those 3 in Baten Kaitos. There's also 2 big series that I want to revisit in 2021. First, Dragon Quest. We did a couple episodes on Dragon Quest over the years. We did some on Dragon Quest V in, I think, 2017, maybe 2018. And we've done... Yeah, okay. And we did an episode on Dragon Quest XI in early 2019, and a couple other side episodes here. But I want to do another Dragon Quest game for the 35th anniversary in a couple months. We haven't decided which one yet, so we're going to put that to a vote and do a Dragon Quest game for the podcast a few months from now. Probably May, but don't hold me to that. We'll figure it out as we go. And also, Suikoden is on our minds recently because Eiyuden Chronicle had a very, very high-profile crowdfunding campaign a few months ago that got and Suikoden has a very dedicated and very excitable fan base, of which Zach Wilkerson might count himself among their number. We've done episodes on Suikoden 2 and Suikoden 5 on the podcast, and we're doing another one in 2021. I won't say which one it is, but you could at least make a reasonable guess. So I can promise in 2021, Baten Kaitos in January, Radiant Historia in February, Persona 2 Eternal Punishment later, another SMT game that's not Persona later, and also a Dragon Quest game TBD and a Suikoden game TBD. That is 6 of the 4. Yes, that is 6 of the 12 game journals happening in 2021. Don't press me on anything else. That's all you're getting. But speaking of Retro Encounter, I've mentioned this at the beginning of the episode. I thought 2020 was a real strong year for the podcast, even though it was not a strong year for a lot of other things. And again, I played, depending on how many spoiler casts you count, something like 11 to 15 games for the podcast exclusively, and thought that all except for FF10-2 were good. That's a pretty good rate of return. Like,
that is excellent, really.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, at least you beat everything as well.
Yeah, that was something that I've had a problem with in the past, and I beat all of the games I set out to beat for the podcast this time, which has not happened before. I'm very proud of that, and hopefully I at least get close to that number again in 2021, both for how much I enjoy the games and how many of them I finish. Were there any Retro Encounter episodes that happened in the past 12 months that you had particular fun memories of?
Mother 3. That conversation, the panel, which is many of us were a part of, I thought that we got to the mechanics elements of it well, but also just like talking about honestly, like the politics of that game and the philosophy of that game and just like the humor of it. I thought that the Mother 3 episodes were special. Like I've been on a lot of episodes of Retro, and you're amazing, Mike. Like truly, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this podcast and you, but I thought those episodes were special.
Oh, I appreciate you too, man.
I loved being on the Nier ones, which is probably something that y'all are going to bring up too. I love being on the Nier ones just because that game is it is an extremely special, beautiful game. I even got to before the virus, I even got to go see the Nier orchestral concert. And so, I mean, everything around that game this year, I had finished playing it just at the tail end of 2019, and then getting to talk about it and going to this concert. There's been so many positive feelings that I've had about that game in relation to my proximity to other people, including, people on the show. So I really love and appreciate that episode, and I'm going to hold those dear.
Agreed.
Thanks, Eva. And that, you got to go to a Nier Automata soundtrack, and Nier Automata is a game that does a lot of things spectacularly, but the music might be a particular point of excellence. Because it is one of the best soundtracks of modern video games, full stop.
Oh, yeah. Both of them. And we're getting the remake next year.
That's right. Yeah, we're getting a remake of Replicant next year, so that'll probably be my chance to finally play Nier 1.
Please do it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to make it happen. I got it.
Fantastic.
Oh, I know it is. I even edited those episodes years ago.
Persona 2 is my favorite episodes, just because I had so much fun. I popped off a bit on those episodes, and I'm sorry about that, everybody.
Do not apologize. How dare you?
If anyone is going to apologize for popping off on Retro Encounter, it is me occupying spots 1, 2, 3 through 7. All right, so don't apologize for popping off. Come on.
But similarly to I wasn't on the Nier episodes, although I have played Nier Automata, and Mother 3 I was on, and totally agree, amazing. All the game journals I've been on have been really good this year, but Persona 2 is just so fascinating. Everything felt so well lined up, whether it was deliberate or not. It felt so unique, especially it felt 1998, 1999, whatever it came out?
99 and 2000 were those two. Yeah.
Yeah, and so for it to do what it did and have everything so lined up like that and just be as bizarre as hell as it was and still be engaging, I don't think I've ever had as much fun researching a game as much as I did Persona 2. So I'm really, really excited to play Eternal Punishment next year. It's waiting on my PS3 right now.
We're going to try and bring the band back together for that one. See if we can recreate the panel and revisit some of those themes.
Add you to it, Sollosi.
Yes.
Yeah, I played Innocent Sin a few years ago on PSP, but I've never played Eternal Punishment, so I'm going to try and rectify that this year.
Yeah. Quick shout out to episode 250 as well, which I thought was delightful. So yeah.
Hey Nathan, I know you weren't on a lot of episodes of Retro Encounter, but we had a pretty good time playing Tokyo Mirage Sessions together, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. It was a fun time returning to that game and getting to talk about it with you.
That game is considerably less heavy in its themes compared to Mother 3, Nier Automata, or Persona 2 Innocent Sin. Considerably. But it is a real good time. And again, I hope I'm not too flippant in how I half praise, half mock that game. But it is a candy-colored delight. It really is.
Yeah, no. It's so much fun. And just being able to talk about it with someone else was great for me.
And I guess, just to round it out to an even 5, if any new obsession was awakened in me in 2020 in video games, it's Yakuza. So those Yakuza 0 episodes were so much fun to talk about. Eva, you were also a semi-newbie to Yakuza like me, but Rob Steinman and John O'Logan are sort of, born-again Yakuza fans, excited to talk about it. And those were really fun episodes to be on. I still think about, the weird interpretation of masculinity and the weird celebration and critique of 80s capitalist excess in that game. like Yakuza 7 makes a lot of statements about like the underserved and privilege, and vice. But Yakuza 0 makes its own unusual economic and political statements that I still think about. Like those lieutenants, man.
They're those characters are so excellent. I mean, we were just talking about them a couple of days ago, and we're both just like, man, they're so good, and they're so well acted. Oh, yeah, Yakuza 0. Those were some fun episodes too.
Yeah, a lot of good episodes of Retro Encounter in 2020 that I will re-listen to and revisit. And again, I mean, this podcast is something very important to me, and all of the panelists, especially you four who have been on so many episodes, are really important to me. And I sometimes I feel burned out on podcasting, but I don't know. I'll message one or multiple of you guys about the next game we're playing, and I'll get excited again and excited to podcast again. So I'm not ready to give it up, and I hope that 2021 is as fun as 2020 in podcasting.
Unless it ends in January because of me, but there you go.
I don't think
because of you.
You are going. Alana is going to host the Bots and Kaitos episodes, and I'm excited to listen to them, even in spite of any pessimistic nonsense coming from the other.
If I can host, you can definitely host, Alana. You got this.
Oh my god, I'm gonna fight you, Alana.
No, I'm too soft to fight.
Your pessimism makes me want to fight you.
Only fight her from a respectable distance of at least 6 feet away.
I will. It'll be like the Grinch. It'll be a 39.5-foot pole, and I'm just going to be like poking. I'm just going to like poking her in the ribs with it. Just...
but only if you can sing it with those dulcet tones of Thurl Ravenscroft.
I could, but I'm not going to because reasons.
I just like saying the name Thurl Ravenscroft. All right, original voice of Kirby the Vacuum, Tony the Tiger, and the singing voice of You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch. What a legend!
Brilliant.
His name is Thurl Ravenscroft. Holy moly,
it's so good.
What a name! You couldn't make up that name in a Dickens novel.
You couldn't. No.
But okay. If I'm going into the resume of Thurl Ravenscroft now, it's definitely time to end the episode. But so thank you, panel. I hate saying what I'm thankful for at Thanksgiving dinner, but I truly am thankful for all of you, and I'm also thankful for you, the listening audience. Thanks for sticking with us for 2+ hours about a podcast with retro in the title, talking about extremely current video games. So, but give us this one or two or three chances a year to talk about recent things, and especially with Hades and Yakuza Like a Dragon episodes coming next month. But listeners, if you want to reach out to us directly, the best way to do so is email retro@rpgfan.com. rpgfan.com has message boards and a Facebook page and Instagram and Twitter and a YouTube channel that I always forget to plug, and a Discord server that I usually remember to plug. Also a Twitch channel with something streaming on Twitch just about every day. Please interact with RPG Fan in however manner you choose, including 3 other podcasts. There's Random Encounter about randomness every 2 weeks, Rhythm Encounter about RPG music every 2 weeks, and Phoenix Edge, a weekly podcast mostly on current events. Those 3 and Retro Encounter are findable on your regular podcast venues, including Spotify, Google Play, iTunes. Provide feedback to us and them and all of us. We love feedback, and things like reviews and feedback are helpful for other people to find the podcast. Do all of those things. But if you want to do things that involve reaching out to us directly, let's tell you how to do that, starting with you, Zach.
The best way to reach me is probably email at zachw@rpgfan.com, or you can find me on Discord at zachw.
And now Nathan.
All right, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at SmashKing27 on Twitter, and then Discord, SmashKing.
Alana, I choose you.
So you can find me on Twitter at Alana Hagues, or on Instagram as well. On the RPG Fan Discord, I am Alana, or you can reach out to me by email. My address is alanah@rpgfan.com.
And Eva.
You can find me on RPG Fan's general social media accounts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and you can find me on my personals as @EvaLise, Twitter and Instagram.
And listeners, you can find me on Twitter, mostly at The Real Monsoon, sometimes at Evoker for Dogs. I'm also at Monsoon Mike on RPG Fans Discord. But mostly, I host about 75% of the episodes of Retro Encounter. And I will continue to do so until further notice. So thank you. Goodbye to 2020. Hello, 2021. Good riddance. Thank you. Good night. Good luck.